Welcome to the top of a hill. What we're talking about today is the value of using a long lens for landscape photography. And particularly we're going to use a long lens for panorama photography. What I've got set up here is my Olympus OM1 Mark III with just a low cost 40, no, it's not a 40, is it a 40? Goodness, I don't even know what it is. It's a 40 to 150 zoom. It has a aperture range of 4 to 5.6, which is perfectly okay for this. Now obviously it's not the greatest lens, but you don't necessarily need that. Obviously the sharper the lens, the better. And at 132mm, I managed to get this tree. You see I'm not zoomed in all the way because it's a maximum 150 on it, but at about a same focal distance I got a panorama using this lens and stitched together in Lightroom. Give you an idea of the distance. Have a look at the circle around the rock, and now the rock circled again in this shot, and it's shot from the motorhome in the bottom left hand corner. Please take a moment to nudge that like button. So back up on the hill here, I'm faced with this big open plain of moorland, and I'm going to use the long lens to do a panorama here. One of the very useful things here is a steady tripod. And you can do this handheld for sure. You just don't necessarily line things up as perfectly, because as you pan yourself around, you can't be guaranteed to be at the same level throughout, and therefore you end up with a shot that takes a bit more matching, and we can do this in Photoshop later. I've got the tripod steady. I've used the inbuilt level in it to work out that we've got the correct squareness on it. So it is flat throughout here. It's a little bubble level, and actually if I just move that a touch more, I'm not perfect, that's better. And this one's got a hook on it as well, which I can hang my camera bag on. Now perhaps that move when I'm sat on a rock here isn't that important, but if you're on moss or something, having a lot of downforce would make a big difference here. I'm working in portrait mode. Now this is important because if we're going to do a panorama, we want to get as much depth of an image as we can, and therefore working in portrait mode with a long lens will give us that. If I zoom in, now I've still got a bit of foreground here, and let me just do a rotation around, see what we've got, see how much foreground. So I do end up with some more foreground coming around here. And also do a practice of this. I've got my camera level meter up, and just watch that. So I'm not entirely square here, because as I come around I'm more up here a little, so my bubble level might not be entirely accurate. Let's just push that there. So I'm now square on the camera level. We'll just do a rotation there, and I'm pretty square all the way around now actually. But I've still got foreground in here. So the only way I can get rid of that foreground is to raise the center column a bit. So we'll just push it up a little, tighten it off. Now of course I have slightly less stability having brought this up, but it is a sturdy tripod, so I trust it, and it's not that important in any case, because I'm running even at f9, which is about the sweet spot for most lenses. I've got 320th of a second, so we're not concerned about camera shaking anyway here. And I've got a lot of sky in this. I'm doing a big wide vista here, so we'll work there. We'll do one shot. This is f9 at 500th of a second. Now if you've got a lot of difference in the exposure between the sky and the land, then obviously you can do a bracketed shot here and merge the brackets later. The important thing, I think, is to ensure that you get the overlap. So you need at least around a third overlap on each shot. So make a note of what is to the extremity of your current frame before you start moving. Just release there. Okay, so I've got that, and I'm going to go to there. Now, bear in mind, this isn't a big movement of the pan axis of this. Make sure everything's as tight as it can be. We're going to start there, and my focus point is in the lower third of the image, because there's a lot of sky in this image. That's at 6/40th of a second at f9. We're in aperture priority mode here, so we're going to leave f9 all the way through. It's just going to be a big vista. There's our first shot. Now, by way of example, this is a wide panorama. You can see how it's been built up. There's a total of 11 20 megapixel photos in here. It's not 20 megapixels times 11 in width, because of course there's a good deal of overlap. You can see the overlap as this builds up. If we've got any foreground detail when we're panning around, we need to make sure that we overlap the foreground detail and not the background detail, because obviously parallax, that moves a lot faster. Now, I prefer to use a viewfinder for a lot of compositions like this, because I have total isolation and focus on what I'm doing, and it makes a real difference. What I should have done at the start of this is made a marker on the images to say where the start and stop of my panorama shoot is. And the easiest way of doing that is just to stick your finger in front and yeah, focus on your finger or something, or just create a real big blur. And there's your marker point. And to clarify that point with a visual, this is a grab of the images from my hard drive, and you can see it's very obvious where the sequences for these panoramas start and end. And you can use this technique for any sequence. It's great for HDR shots, brilliant for panoramas, any sequence where you need to know where the images start and end. And here's a few more panoramas, some taken on the same day as the main filming for this, and one or two not. This was a handheld one, looking straight away from the motorhome, slightly different direction from the first one you saw. This, I remember taking this and in awe of the site in front of me. This is from Ingleborough. I think this is a 4-shot panorama looking over to the north. This is a much more recent shot taken just a few days ago in August. This is a view over Horsey Mere at sunset. Spectacular. And this one, my absolute favourite. I liked it so much I had it printed in a portfolio book. This is Malham in the Yorkshire Dales. It's fabulous. Well, that's it for this long lens panorama video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found it useful. If you have, click the like button and we'll see you on the next one.